So in the 90s, I was one of those capital ventures, working everything in my mind about making profits. The environment, of course, was part of the equation, but the words climate change did not exist. Gas emissions, who cares? My point is, I always take into consideration in the definition of sustainability, I always take into consideration the fact that it has to be sustainable financially and optimally profitable. We can, in a developing country, in a city that is in a developing country like Chișinău, we can create sustainable projects that will make the city more efficient in terms of energy and protect the environment. It's all possible. The solutions exist. They don't have to be invented. There's no such thing as creating a carbon capture plant that will just suck out all the carbon. That's a wet dream from billionaires. Okay, it's not realistic. It's costing about $600 US for each ton of CO2 that is removed. It's insanely costly. This is not the way to do it. There's places in the world that are producing 17, 18% of all methane emissions. They're landfills. Landfills that everyone in the region have. And I've been to many landfills in Moldova, and I know they're all leaking, by the way. And it's not, oh, bad Moldova. No. It's just Moldova. The region is like that. And if you think landfills in the UK are not leaking, they are leaking. They're leaking too. It's just that they're leaking a little less. Sorry. The main point I want to make today, and I'm going to make this short, is that any solution that is being promoted and from applications in rich countries do not necessarily apply to a developing country or a developing city. You know, we're going to touch on solar and wind, but creating a wind factory with the big-ass blades that you see everywhere, you know, and say, oh, renewable energy, this is great. No. Who the hell is going to pay for that in Moldova? You cannot buy yourself the regular solutions. You don't have the budget. You don't have the taxpayer base. It's just, that's the way it is. What you have to do is create your own solution. And of course, part of the solution is, yes, getting grants from the European Commission and all the European everything. The same thing, tapping into funds from the states, of course. But you have to create your own solution. Instead of having those big blades, you know, wind farms, what you need to do is locally create wind turbines that can be set up. There are small things. There's actually here in Moldova a company that has started doing those. They're vertical small units. They're only a couple of, they're like a cubic meter each. You can set them up in series and install them on the roof of building. You don't have $10 million to do the wind farm. Same thing with sorry, for anybody who's you know, offering panels, solar panels, they're costly. They're very costly. And creating an entire farm of those, it's very difficult financially. You just don't have the budget. One thing, technology that exists right now, a lot of the buildings in Moldova, since I've been here almost 2 years, living in Moldova, most of the buildings are heated with hot water systems. So you still use solar energy, but you use it with the vacuum tubes. You use the vacuum tubes because they create hot water. You don't have to create electricity to eat the heater that makes the hot water. You create the hot water directly. And you don't buy those devices, equipment, from somebody somewhere. Yes, you buy the tubes, the vacuum tubes, from China because you cannot compete price-wise against them. But you bring them that here in Chișinău, in Moldova, and you manufacture those units right here. Remember, every European or American or company that is coming here and offering you a solution that includes equipment, they're selling you something. And that's my capital venture, background. They're trying to make $1 or €1. Nothing wrong with that, but a system, for example, of small units in series with a vacuum tube solar system on top of 1,000 or 5,000 buildings in Moldova will really have an impact for the city being sustainable in terms of energy. And you can do it one step at a time. You do 5 buildings this month. Then you find the financing for others. You don't need $10 or $20 million and then wait 5 years. You can implement as you go along. Yeah, one thing that developing countries, I'm going to give you an example. So, waste to energy plants. Of course, in a lab, and I'm a scientist by education, I'm going to remind you again. In a lab, the best way to convert waste from a municipal landfill into something valuable is to create a waste to energy plant. Yeah, if you have 20, 30 million in your back pocket, yeah, it makes sense. And that's my point, is that in a developing countries, it doesn't fiscally make sense. You have to do something else. You have to, for example, use enzyme or bacteria, whatever, technology that exists right now, and take all the organic of the municipal landfill and turn that into fertilizers. And then, yes, you can use the plastic using portable equipment and not costly equipment, pyrolysis, to create fuel from it. Is it the best scientifically proven solution? No. But it does the job. 70% efficiency for 20% of the cost. And that's where solutions and technology for developing countries and cities exist and should exist and be implementable. I mean, and for everybody because I'm going to use an example, don't be mad. Anybody who works at the Chișinău, that's not my point, okay? Every country in the region have their own Chișinău, by the way. So, one of the things right now that the city of Chișinău is sitting on is what I call a gold mine. The accumulated sludge, which is namol in Romanian, the waste of the sewage plant. So it's the waste of the waste. It's nasty stuff, okay? And every summer, everybody who lives in Chișinău knows it smells. It's coming from that, the namol, okay? Right now, I figure about 650,000 tons of sludge sitting right here in Chișinău. And there's a project to turn that into biofuel, Well, that project's been sitting there for years. There's, I believe, a German company. The problem, there's no budget to complete the project. So what I suggest to do is to turn a portion, at least a portion, of all those hundreds of tons into fertilizers. Why? To create sustainable farming or landscaping for the city. 33,000 farmers in Moldova. Because of the war, they're paying 2 to 3 times the price that they used to pay for fertilizers. There's a need for fertilizers being produced locally. And I'm going to finish with one thing that a city like Chișinău, by international standard, a small city, needs to establish, and I know there's a council that the city wants to put together, is task force. Task force that will address and put together participants that right now are just sitting nowhere. You need somebody to invite investors to participate into projects. And why would they come? Because you're going to create for them carbon credits. You have to create funneling of money into the country. If you just plan on getting money from the European Commission, it's not going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. Nobody's going to finance your transition to renewable energy. So you need to offer carbon credits for all their goals of net zero, and also create financial instruments to channel and fuel money. Let's say I'm a Saudi asset management fund with $1 trillion. If I want to invest in real estate in Moldova, I cannot. There's no instruments for me to invest. There's no public company that does renewable energy on the stock market in Moldova, or in a Romanian market that does that in Moldova. You have to create the financial tools to channel and fuel your transition. If you're looking for 5 or 6 million to transform 20 social buildings, well, you should be looking for 60 million from that Saudi fund. And if you offer them a way to be able to trade like a stock, and it's possible, very possible, offer them the tool to invest and trade with an exit strategy. They have to be able to say, okay, I want to sell that asset. They're not going to send a guy from Saudi Arabia to come here and purchase 20 buildings. It's not in their statute. That's not what they do. They invest in tradable securities. Right now, there's no such thing in Moldova. And I think one of the task force that I suggest the city to create should be dedicated in creating those instruments, making new money, real money, not European Commission money, come to Moldova. Thank you for your time.